What's up, Twinkle Toes? You're listening to Sin, and I am the greatest earthbender in the world. And don't you two dunderheads ever forget it.
Hi,
Go ahead.
everyone, and welcome back to Earl Grey. We have a very special guest joining us on the show. You may know her as the voice actor of Toph in Avatar: The Last Airbender. We have Michaela Jill Murphy, also known as Jessie Flower. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so cool talking to people who are so far away from me. So thanks for reaching out.
So, first of all, I have to say I am a huge Avatar fan. I am so excited to have you on the show.
Very sweet. Thank you. Thank you.
And I wanted to ask, so you joined Avatar: The Last Airbender in season 2 when the gang was already established. What was that like coming into a show that had already had that like dynamic set up?
Um, I think it's a testament to Mike and Brian being great writers and great creators because I didn't feel awkward at all. I mean, I was also like a 12-year-old, so I feel like my general just confidence of, you know, pre-teendom was there. So I didn't walk in being like, oh, like everybody else has already been established. I'm like, cool, I'm Toph. Like there was really no second thought on any of it. Which I guess is, they cast me accordingly based off of that attitude. But I think the dialogue and kind of the meshing of the new dynamic between all the characters was very well directed. That's also a testament to our director Andrea Romano, because she did that so beautifully. The first couple episodes where they like are all figuring out how to work together, and Toph is like, "I can carry my own weight," and Katara's like, "No, help us. What are you doing?" And just dealing with all that. It was a lot of fun. I feel like that was probably the most collaborative job that I've ever had because a lot of the times Mike and Brian would be like in the room listening to the episode, like listening to the actors record. There were always a couple of sound engineers, sometimes other artists and like people who worked on the episode would come in and listen too. And that's not normal. A lot of times it's just the actor in the booth with like the director in the other room. And it's like two people, maybe, another sound engineer or something like that. But I remember a lot of episodes had like so many crew members from the show, like they're listening and watching and kind of hanging out. And that was just a little different than a lot of the other projects up to that point. So yeah, it felt easy, but I know it felt easy because everybody else did their job really well. So yeah, it was pretty seamless.
Yeah, that's really cool to see that you slotted in basically
Yeah.
into this already established dynamic. And I wanted to ask, so did you meet the other actors while you were recording the show?
Some, most, I guess, most at some point. None of us met Aang though. None of us met Zach because he was all the way in New York. All of us were in LA recording. So we finally met the Avatar during the finale screening. I guess they had like a screening of the last two episodes, part three, part four of Sozin's Comet. Um, and so we watched that on like a lot, like a Paramount lot, and like Zach flew in from New York, and everyone's like the Avatar. So we finally met Aang. But yes, during regular recording, I sometimes recorded with Jack, who voiced Sokka, occasionally with May, who voiced Katara, um, and Dante, who voiced Zuko, of course. And then we had some other people come through. I met Mako a couple times before he passed away. And then, Greg took his spot and I was there for one day when Mark Hamill was recording, his Fire Lord line. So yeah, I got to meet a good number of people over the course of my time recording. I think, I met Suki as well, Kylie. Yeah, so we didn't always all record at the same time, but over the course of the 2 years of recording, I made some decent headway where I think I met mostly everybody else in the cast at that point. So that was good, I guess. Just
Yeah.
waiting on Twinkle Toes.
No, that's really cool that you got to meet everyone. Because
Yeah.
when I like imagine Avatar, I'm like, gosh, you were probably in a booth alone doing the whole thing by yourself.
A lot of times I was. A lot of times I would say it was probably 50-50 for when I was alone versus when I got to record with somebody. Just depended on scheduling.
Yeah, it's cool that I managed to tee it up so you guys got to meet each other and that also would have helped as well, like when you're imagining, like, doing the dialogue because you
100%.
can imagine who you're doing it with.
Yes, absolutely.
Was there a favorite episode or favorite line that you've got?
I really like, personally, I like the episode The Library. I think it's really pretty. I think the lore is gorgeous. I know that the owl's like a little creepy, but I think he's beautiful. I also think that just the general theme of like how powerful knowledge is, both for good and for bad kind of thing. I don't know, just cool concepts in that episode. But Tales of Bossing Say is a close second. Recording wise, I I really remember recording the Melon Lord episode because I had laryngitis that day. So we did all of the normal lines and saved the I am not Toph, I am Melon Lord line for the very end. And you can kind of hear my voice, like I put on a voice where I kind of go like, I am not Toph, because my voice was just not doing it. It was not cooperating. It was the end of the session. Every time I tried to like go above a certain note, I guess, my voice would just cut out. And so we had to kind of put on this like I am not Toph thing, and it ended up working, but that was that was probably the toughest day of recording just because yeah, I was trying to finish the last lines with kind of no voice. So I remember that day. Aside from that, the finale was really fun to record because there were like 14 of us all in the booth, just like all stuffed in there. And so having us go through pages of dialogue at a time, it really made it feel like the whole story was kind of alive, which was really cool. And yeah, so library, Tales of Bossing Say, and like the finale, and then Melon Lord.
No, they're all really great episodes. Honestly, I would struggle to pick like a favorite Avatar
It's
episode.
hard. They're all good, you know. It's really tricky to pick a favorite.
In a previous interview you did, you mentioned that so when you were Toph, you were basically the same age as Toph. And
Mhm.
the industry goes through periods of like casting kids as kids and then casting adults as kids. What kind of roles are you auditioning for now?
It all over the place. And I think it's not set in stone like, oh, we definitely everybody's just focused on kids now, or we definitely want over an adult. I just think, it kind of wavers in and out of just that happening more or not. I don't think it's like a set like Hollywood thing. I've just noticed it shifting. Um, Gosh, I'm trying to think of like this past week I've sent in an interesting batch. It's everything from just like angsty normal 17-year-olds to very ethereal, like ageless, like witches kind of in their early 30s to, you know, dramatic over boisterous like mothers to like weird little mushrooms, in a forest, to like, dinosaurs hanging out in middle school. It just like you just don't know what you're gonna get in the animation world. I do think that a lot of yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I think a lot of people still like the idea of using like authentic age, authentic ethnicity, authentic, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but if there's a 20-year-old who's like just nails the voice and they don't find a 13-year-old who does, they would rather use the 20-year-old than a 13-year-old. But yeah, age ranges are all over. Sometimes I'll get 5, 6-year-old and up through mid 30s. So it just depends.
Yeah, that's really cool because again, I've started getting into cartoons like slowly,
Mhm.
slowly, and I was looking at The Dragon Prince as an example, and I noticed that you've got Jack DeSena as Callum, who's, an adult, but then you've got, oh my God, I'm just drawing a blank, but the voice actor who plays Prince Ezran is still around Ezran's age. And
Yeah,
so I was thinking maybe they're doing a little bit of both.
I think it just depends. I mean, in my opinion, if you're trying to create the most authentic version of a story and a character, you don't care about any of that. You're just trying to find who has the essence of the character. But what a lot of people, maybe when I was recording, and so maybe this is why I think this way, a lot of people are so used to using adults. And then people were like, guys, we're missing some of the authenticity because we're just using adults. And so, because when I started voice acting, kids in VO wasn't as popular as it is now. So I think maybe that's why I think there was such, a focus on it at the time, because it was like, hey, we are missing the mark here. We could actually have a 10-year-old who is really emulating being 10, and we'll get really good stuff out of that, as opposed to like having a 25-year-old emulate a 10-year-old. And I think things have balanced out since then. But I think since it wasn't as popular yet, that maybe that's why people were like focusing on it more, or people just said that they were. Who knows? Who knows? But if you're making a show, if I were making a show, I don't care where you come from, how old you are, what's going on. If you make that heart, that little fire come alive, because it happens pretty quickly, apparently. I haven't really been on the other side of like casting that often, but as soon as you hear, see, kind of the general energy, it kind of just clicks and you're like, oh, yes, that. Okay, more of that. And then you're not like, oh, but are they seven? It's like, I feel like once you find the character, then you're just like, I found the character.
Yeah, true. It's so important to cast the right person in the right
Yeah.
role.
It's
Uh,
it's so every single piece of how a show gets made, I realized more and more as I get older, is so delicate. The fact that anything amazing gets made and then released is kind of a phenomenon, because every single character, the color grading, the music editing, the actual shot list, the cinematography, the script, the dialogue, the just everything is so important to have the final image be what it is. Um, and then to have it greenlit by the studio. And then, it's just like there's so much. Now that I'm like older and just realizing how many people are involved in the process, how many okays you have to get to even get to the next stage of producing something. Yeah. So casting is huge. Huge, huge, huge. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you guys is Friends popular in Australia at all?
yeah, I'd say it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
My
So
there was
I
the
feel like
whole
that's,
Friends experience thing in
there you
Carlton
go. Okay,
recently.
good. So I feel like I like to use Friends as an example, because I'm sure there are tons of other incredibly talented actors who could have been any of those characters, and like it would have been as, funny and fun, whatever. But the way that each of those actors inhabited their roles made it exactly what it is, and made it what is so amazing. Like they were allowed to flourish in kind of those characters and play and like really make it their own. And without that, it would not it would not land. Like the writing can only be so good. Like who you cast really changes the whole game. Um, so yeah, I'm also saying that to myself as I start to write more and think about like doing stuff more on the production side, as well, just because I feel like people are making Hollywood's making lots of interesting decisions these days, and I'm like, man, what's happening? Let's get in there and like make some decisions ourselves. Like, change the trajectory of the industry a little. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I agree that that when you're making a character, you can start with an idea in mind, but it's the actors who bring that to life.
Yeah, whole different level.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Earl Grey. I'm Samantha Fremont, and I am on the show with the voice actor of Toph in Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is Michaela Jill Murphy, also known as Jessie Flower. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So, following Avatar: The Last Airbender, the next avatar in the cycle is Korra, and Toph appears in her show as well, we find her actually in the swamp. And
Yes.
I want to know, why do you think that Toph would choose to live in the swamp?
I think Toph was always meant to live in the earth. I mean, she learned earthbending from badger moles, right? And she was clearly kind of running away from home, escaping from home. And, when we kind of first see her learning earthbending early on, she's like crying in a cave. Who knows why? Probably from being misunderstood. Maybe she got yelled at by her parents. Who knows, right? So she's always kind of wanted to be away from that. And I think she's always liked doing things herself. I mean, we see her be aggressively independent. She likes marching to the beat of her own drum. She's like, I can carry my own weight. Like she's used to being independent. A lot of people are like, why did she become like the police chief? Because she was so sick of like following everybody else's rules. So then she just became in charge of them so that she wouldn't have to answer to anybody else. But then I'm assuming that she realized, wait a second, why am I trying so hard? Why am I putting up with any of this? Never mind, no people, I'm out. And then she just pieces out and goes to the swamp. I really think that's probably what happened. She's like, oh man, I don't want to answer to anybody else. So like, I'll just be in charge. And then she's like, this is so much work. What was I thinking? I'll just go live in the dirt. So
Y-
that's why I think she went to the swamp.
Yeah, because I was actually going to bring up her being the police chief prior to this, because,
Mhm.
yeah, I was actually wondering, do you think that potentially the war and the finale episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender changed how Toph views
Hmm.
rules and, why they exist and why they're enforced?
Maybe. I also think that we watched her learn kind of sand bending over the course of the show, because obviously in the library, she can't really see, and she can't really sand bend. And then by the time they're at the beach later in season 3, she figures it out and has that whole like kind of sand village thing that she's bended. So I think probably while learning that, while figuring out metal bending, while teaching Aang, you know, discipline and like I guess education are actually really, really helpful. They're not hindrances, they're stepping stones. And so I'm sure, especially when they were like in, full battle, she was like, thank goodness we practiced because like they were hanging on for their lives, literally. Um, so yeah, probably. I would say any big battle like that changes the trajectory of how you think about everything.
Yeah, it's a really big it's a really big thing, and we can see at the start of The Legend of Korra just how much it has shaped the Avatar universe.
Everything.
I do want to ask also, apparently there is an adult gang movie in the works.
Yeah, apparently coming out fall of next year, 2025.
So what do you hope to see from Toph in that film?
I honestly have no idea. I feel like I don't really have expectations for anything. Maybe that's just because I'm constantly auditioning and traveling and like putting myself into other characters and scripts. But people are like, oh, what do you want this to? And oh, what do you guess? Not just for Avatar, but for anything. Season 3 of Bridgerton or whatever, or 4, I guess now. But I'm like, I don't know. Whatever the creators make it. I'm not there. So like, why would I hypothesize what it would? Maybe that's also because I'm a writer. I studied screenwriting in undergrad. So I'm like, I don't want to come up with a scenario and then be disappointed. So I just don't. I have no expectations in the best way possible. I'm like, they created the original, they created Korra, they've created all these comics. They'll figure it out and then we'll watch it and it'll be great. So maybe that's a bit of a boring answer, but I really don't have any expectations. Um, yeah, no, other than just kind of being excited to see everybody grown up a little bit. I think that'll be cool.
Yeah, because again, that is absolutely not a boring answer at all. Because again, I'm also one of those people um, when a new show's coming out, I do like to make my own theories, but I also like to see what people actually like, what the writers actually came up with themselves. Because sometimes it's better than what I could have imagined.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask, so you went to Yale to study screenwriting. How has that changed your perspective on making TV and films?
Well, I started university as pre-med. So after Avatar, I stopped acting for a while. I was super math and science based and focused on pre-med. Ended up changing into screenwriting just because I didn't really know what else to do. I like realized pre-med wasn't for me, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And so I ended up finding screenwriting, loving it, majoring in it. Um, it kind of made me realize how much I've been thinking in film for so long. I grew up in Los Angeles. I've watched a lot of TV and film. Um, and I don't know, it kind of just was helpful to structure it a little bit. It made me realize that I'm really grateful for all the stuff that I have done because I think of dialogue very easily. I think of scene direction pretty easily, and like all these things come naturally to me. So I don't know, it kind of made me realize two things, I guess, on the same spectrum of like how difficult it is and how every single little detail really can impact everything, but also how simple a story is. It's kind of both. So I guess anytime I'm thinking about a character or a story, I kind of keep in mind that like, yes, like every little look, like kind of the little twitch of the shoulder for any Pride and Prejudice fans, any stretch of a hand, any little movements really make a huge difference, but also don't overcomplicate it. In my head, you can really only talk about two things, and it's love or death or both. And like anything in life is love. If you're raising family, if you're trying to get a raise at your job, if you're taking care of a dog, those are all versions of love. Or death, like the end of something, the loss of someone. And that's really it. So it's kind of it's complicated, but it's so simple. So I think that's my main takeaway from, I guess, thinking about film more in screenwriting.
Yeah, it's so important that that everything contains an element of love, and that's what makes it human and not like some AI generated garbage, if you don't mind me putting that
No,
out
I
there.
think we all feel that way.
Yeah. And I do want to ask as well that you've also dabbled a little bit in songwriting. So you were involved in a new track called Close to Me by Dunk Murder, featuring yourself on vocals. So how did this all come about?
I've been singing for forever. I've been songwriting lightly for a very long time, for over a decade, but I never sat down and really worked on it or released anything because I knew it wasn't good. And people are like, oh, I'm sure it was fine. No, nobody's amazing when you start songwriting. Like you have to go through those growing pains of like writing cheesy lyrics, thinking like, oh, I'm going to write this great thing. And then you actually put it down on the page and you're like, this is terrible. It takes time. And so I never was really loud about it or shared it. Um, and so it's fun kind of talking to people. They're like, oh my gosh, music. And I'm like, yeah, I've been thinking of lyrics. There are so many notes in my phone, just of years of just little lines of like seeing two people on the subway who are like really cute and like have this little like moment, or like this old woman who's just reading a book and then like next to some pigeons. I don't know, just little things of inspiration. And I met my co-writer Dunk Moda, just at a party in LA in December. He was like, I do music. I'm like, cool. I was like, I sing and like sometimes I write lyrics, something, something. He's like, why don't I just send you some tracks just so you can hear and like just tell me what you think? And I was like, cool, of course, whatever. Um, he's a fan of Avatar, so that helped. And then he did, and there was one track close to me that I really liked. And I was like, hey, can I like mess with this a little? Can I write some lyrics? Can I play with the melody? Is that fine? He's like, yeah. And so then I went over and we started recording stuff. And then we kind of co-wrote the actual music a little. And our version of that was me being like, hey, this one part that goes like, well, can we make it like what like, and he just had to like translate what I was trying to explain. And then he would, do his little typing magic and adjust things in, you know, on the track. And I'd be like, yes, like that. Can we raise the level on that? And then there was this weird little breath thing. Can we take that down? So we just like, work together to make it work. And then he's like, he already has songs released. And he's like, I want to release this. And I'm like, cool, let's do it. And then we decided to make a music video, which is in post-production. My first time doing that. So I'm finally just having fun. And like, I really like the song. It's an EDM track, electronic track. Technically, it's progressive house. That's not the only style I sing. The next thing I'm going to work on is pop song, and I also sing country. I sing musical theater. I sing some jazz. So I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm playing with it. I'm having fun, and I'm liking that there's no pressure with that. So
Yeah, it's really cool that you're finding out like in music what you like. And yeah, I'm really excited for the Close to Me music video when it does drop. But in the meantime, we will be listening to a very special song. So, what is the name of this song?
Close to Me by Dunk Moda featuring me, Michaela Jill Murphy.